Welcome back to another episode of the Four Insight Podcast, episode 33. I'm your host, Mike Obi. Another family edition, rounding
Yay.
out 2020. One of my closest family members, close cousin, grew up with her, and she's doing big things in life, and this is
Aw.
just going to be a gem of an episode. She's gotten into medical school, so definitely that'll be a really big key of conversation. She's also one of the people who inspires me to be outspoken and to really push me in life. But without further ado, Nneanata Echetebu. How are you?
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to
How are
be
you
here.
doing? How are you doing?
I'm doing well, especially since it's the holidays. I've just been relaxing, chilling with family, and just focusing on getting some rest and having
Yeah,
fun. So, yeah.
rest is important. Family is important, most definitely. If
Yes.
there's nothing else that 2020 has taught us is that you take nothing, no day, no moment for granted. So, definitely I'm thankful and grateful that we're all healthy for sure.
Right.
So,
Definitely.
where I want to begin is where I always go with every episode, especially with our guests, is just to give a bit of background and let people really understand the person who they're listening to. So you grew up a little bit in Houston, but the majority of your upbringing was in Tennessee. So talk about
Yeah.
what city you guys lived in and how that shaped you and molded you.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I was born Richardson, Texas, lived a little bit in Dallas, and then moved to Tennessee when I was about like 6 years old. My dad still lives in Houston, so I'd be with my dad for like summers and holidays, because I would see you. And but like where I did like my schooling and everything was in a city outside of Nashville called Brentwood, Tennessee.
Mm,
And so yeah, I feel like Houston and Brentwood are just like two completely different places, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. So like Houston's probably like one of the most diverse places in this nation. Brentwood, Tennessee, it's not diverse at all. It's well off city as well. So I mean, like I do feel like both have shaped me in a lot of different ways. Like Houston, like it's really fun to go and visit Houston and like, be able to see, different cultures, but also like a city that caters to Black people, African people as well,
Yeah,
even like little
absolutely.
things like food, like clubs, et cetera, et cetera. So, like there's that rich culture, rich history, and also just like a feeling of being normalized. And Brentwood is just like, like it's also home, but it's also like not so normalized. But it's also a place where I have like a lot of memories, you know what I mean? Like it's a very small town. So it's like you go out to places like the grocery store, the park or something, you might see people that you know. And so you have that communal feel, but like in a different way, Houston's like communal and just like, you see your people, you see your culture and stuff. Brentwood is communal and just like, that's familiar. Like I grew up with a lot of people. There's a lot of people that I know today. And I'm like, why do I know your middle name? Why do I know your mama's name? Like I knew you forever. But yeah, so I feel like that communalness is just like something that I valued as a person and just like in every area and aspect that I search for in life. I do like having that sense of community. And I do think that that's something that's important. I do think that that's something that has shaped me as a woman that I am today.
Right, that's great. And I think that's important and really key. That our upbringings, our surroundings, what we know is kind of what shapes us and what we value. Right.
Right.
Me who
Mm-hmm.
lived in Houston forever, and it being a big city and a diverse city. All types of cultures and all types of people. I value that now. I like being around people of different customs and really being able to learn. Right, and I think that's important for all people to kind of understand and kind of diversify their surroundings because it helps you really kind of see that life is bigger than just yourself, right? When you live in a small town or in a small area and everybody looks and thinks the same, you don't really understand how to see people's different perspective or viewpoints. So I think that's great. But I think also there are values because I grew up in a small town as well, and it was well off, and I think there's value in growing up in a small town. There's definitely a big community feel. Everybody kind of knows one another, so there's value in both. But I think being able to see both, being that you were able to come to Houston, see what the diversity in Houston presented, and then Brentwood kind of helped you, distinguish the two.
Right. And also just like being a young Black girl, like growing up in Brentwood as well, you stood out, like you weren't normalized. And it's just
Mm.
like, you also just like feel a little awkward too.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I do think that was also like a foundation for just like, you know, me really wanting to, like hold tight, hold close to my culture, and and also just be me unapologetically, to learn more. And yeah, I feel like that also just like being so different and being so, um, just being like a marginalized group in that city as well. I feel like it definitely yielded some of that for me.
No, definitely. We'll get into that, throughout the course of this episode. But I do think that that's really a key and admirable trait that you have is that you are unapologetically who you are. You're unapologetically Black,
Um,
you're unapologetically African. And I think that's important for people to kind of
yes.
have that identity about themselves because some people, when they're marginalized or whenever they're not the herd, right? They're not part of the group, they're not the majority. And especially if they have to deal with, being just having to deal with racism or having to deal with social issues or not being accepted, they can kind of go into their shell. They could try to deny who they are rather than embrace it. And so I think that's really important that people really embrace their identity and their cultures as you've done.
Most definitely. Thank you.
For sure. So now, one thing, like you mentioned, myself and my siblings, we spent a lot of time with you and your siblings, Amechi,
Hmm.
Miata, and Trudy, and one thing that our parents used to always talk about with us in terms of you guys is how you guys excelled in the classroom and the value that
Oh,
education always
Auntie. I love
played.
Auntie. I love
And the value that education always played for you guys. You all have excelled in school. And so, one thing I
Mhm.
want to know is what was it about just school in general that was so important and so vital for you? Because not everyone takes school seriously, right? So, what is it about you
Mhm.
that motivated you?
Right. And I feel like, I don't even know who said that. I think it was like Jadena or something when he said like pressure is privilege. You know what I mean? And it's just like, especially child of immigrant, and just like, our parents came here for opportunity and stuff like that. So I feel like it's just so ingrained, but not even just that. I feel like it was so normalized for me. And I'm the last like born child, like between both of my parents. And so like, and I do think also this is why representation is so important because, I saw my siblings do it.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't even just like a thing. It was just like, oh, this is just, what I do. Like it's just normalized, which is definitely a privilege to have that and to normalize education is important. Or yeah, I'm going to go to further education. Like college wasn't even a question. Like it was just something that was just so normalized. Just within that family dynamic for me and just like seeing my siblings do it. So it was always something that was possible for me. And it's funny because like my parents, like they never like hounded me for grades either. They were never like, let me see all your report cards or like anything like that. Like it was just like they just expected me to do well. Like it was just like an expectation. But it was never like a pressure or anything. It was just like, oh yeah, like I know like you're smart. And that's also a privilege too. Like I do feel like my parents were just always so supportive and always just thought really highly of me. And I do think that also shaped me just like, oh yeah, like, you want your parents like to be proud of you. And that was just some positive reinforcement that I had. And so I had that encouragement. And then I was fortunate, always to go to good schools. And that of course leads back to your parents who placed you there and like wanted that for you. And so yeah, I've come to just really value education in that way. And also I guess just for myself, like as I grew older, just really the education that I like sought a lot was, just like on Black history and like and things like that, the things that we don't get like in your basic curriculum. And so that just came from, like I said before, just the lack of diversity that was around me and just wanting to know more about my history. And I guess that's what the foundation was for that, just striving to have that basic foundation of history that I wasn't getting.
Now I feel that I was a big history buff when I was growing up and when I was
Right.
small. I mean, it was just natural for me. I always like to learn and understand the past because I never saw it. It had already happened, so I'm like, okay, what happened back then, and how did that shape today?
And
I
it
know
felt like in our schools, like they were just teaching us the same thing every single year. And I'm like, bro, we learned this last year. Like, why aren't we learning something different? Like,
exactly. And so I think that that was the curiosity for me where I was like, nah. So when
hmm
we would go to the library, everybody would go get their fiction, stories. And I'm like, okay, I'm going straight to the nonfiction section and I'm taking every possible president. Like I'll never forget, my mom had bought me a encyclopedia of all the presidents. And I remember I read through the whole thing when I was like 7 and I was able to recite them all verbatim. And that was just my curiosity. And I think that was one thing, but also you brought up a couple of different layers I want to peel back. The positive reinforcement that you were able to receive from your parents. I think for some kids, they don't necessarily get that or they don't get school as easily. Like not everyone's as fortunate to just pick up on curriculum or courses and they struggle. And if they
Right.
get, negative reinforcement or people telling them, oh, you're not adequate, you're stupid,
Right.
things like that. That's unfortunate, I feel. And
hmm
so talk about, you know, what you would tell people or kids or people, maybe your peers that may have struggled with school. How do you think they should go about trying to navigate those challenges, in terms of their education?
Well, I will say, like, seek fellowship with people, like, and whether it might be a mentor, whether it might be a friend that you're in school with or something. Because I mean, boy, like, let me tell you, like, school is hard. It can be hard for people, especially like depending on what anything anything that you can pursue in life can be hard. Like if you want it like bad enough,
Yeah.
you can get everything you want like in life. And I definitely stress that because like even for me, like, getting into med school, like at first, like I was trying to do it all on my own, but it wasn't like until like, like I saw like other people until I like really gained a mentor and stuff like that, that I was really like, okay, like maybe I was doing this wrong, or okay, maybe I should try this. You know what I mean? Like we definitely just need people in life and in general. And just like in a broader sense as well, I do think that it's important, like teachers are so important. Those were just teachers were basically like I guess one of the biggest cheerleaders that I had. And it's not like every teacher I had, but like, the one or two that you always remember, like when I was like in 6th grade, like we had like journals that we had to write in every single week. And at the end of the year, when everybody's like ready to throw away their books and stuff and like burn it, I was about to throw away my journal. And my teacher, Miss Bose, I'll never forget her. She was just like, don't throw that journal away. That journal might be famous one day. And she was like, you're a good writer. And that's when I started writing because of her. And so just yeah, like seeking those mentors, seeking friends that, have like-minded goals as you. That support that you can get from community, I definitely value. And I think that that's something that will get you far.
No, absolutely. I think the value of mentorship and mentors is immeasurable. That's what's gotten me past a lot of obstacles is being able to seek out people who've already been where I want to be and have done it before and be able to probe and, dissect their brains and me being a sponge too. I
Right.
think that's something that everybody should kind of strive for is to seek people who have done it before. And that doesn't make you weak. I think there's a bit of a stigma of, well, if you want help or if you seek help, well, then that means you're not tough or you're not, that means you're inadequate or you're not good enough to do it on your own. It's like, no, you're someone who's trying to learn and trying to do things the right way and you need help. Right.
Yeah.
It's to me more foolish to know that you need help and decide not to do anything about it. Right. And so I think that that's one
Don't
thing.
suffer in silence.
Absolutely. Hey, not at all, for sure. Yeah. And so I think, just being able to see other people, getting to where you want to go and being able to learn from them, that'll help you. And you also are able to pass that down. That's one of the big themes of my podcast is, okay, you take what you've learned. All right. You take what you learn from others and you're able to pass it down, and that's how it keeps on going.
Right.
Um, But another layer I think you brought up too, that in terms of this whole education, is being able to see your siblings and people who came before you also
Mhm.
excel, right? So they set the precedent for you. So just talk about the importance of seeing it beforehand and that motivating you to follow in those footsteps.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, like I said, it's just basically like being able to see yourself in that position, seeing somebody like you, seeing somebody that comes from, like, similar background as you, just like that representation is just something huge. And also just like I said again with like the like community and like reaching out to people that support you. And so yeah, one of my biggest helps, like, just was definitely my sister. Like, I'll send her my essays. I'll be like, can you help me, like, edit this or and whatnot? But yeah, no, like, it's definitely important just to see them. And I guess it's just, you set these expectations for yourselves. And what you see around you, how you're raised, like, all these different parts that can play into building this one person up. I definitely feel like those representations are something that allows you to place yourself in that position to where it becomes something that's not even something you have to think about. You just see yourself in that position because you've seen it before, you've seen it done. You see that it's capable, that you're capable of doing that and achieving that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in our culture, education, you mentioned it before. School is one of those things you just have to do. There's no question. There's no going about it. There's no skirting it. There's just, if you don't go to
But if
school,
you want to like do acting school and stuff, that's still good too. Do it. But I know our culture is very
oh,
like
absolutely,
Dr.
absolutely.
Loya and Jenya.
Yeah,
But
no, absolutely. No, and that's really important because we're going to get into that too.
right.
How our cultures evolved, especially as we become more Americanized. But we grew up
Hmm.
with first generation immigrant parents, and their whole precedent, their whole mindset was school is the only way to make your beings to in this country, right?
Hmm.
And I think when people kind of ask me why are Nigerian people so stubborn or why are they so aggressive or why is school such a big deal, I'm like, that's all we know, that's all we were taught, right? And naturally that's just what our brains were geared towards. And I think you're bringing it up now as we've been able to gain more knowledge, our parents, now the next generation of kids, they're able to diversify what fields they're getting into. Now you're seeing them get into acting, get into athletics, and excel in those fields as well. But I think it's all geared towards the motivation. But just talk about how the culture really helped you influence in terms of education.
Yeah, I mean, and I do think for a lot of immigrant groups, we come here for freedom, for opportunity,
Uh,
which is a privilege. To come to this country, not by force, but by like we're coming here for opportunity. That's a privilege
most definitely.
that I acknowledge. And so I guess with our parents, like mentality is just like we came here to build up this life, to build up, with nothing. We came here to build up intergenerational wealth in the family and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a lot of pressure. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, and I definitely do think that that impacts us. Even if we don't take the route our
Mhm.
parents want us to take, we still have that in the back of our mind. What I'm going to do, I will succeed in. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I definitely think that that's what sticks with you because your parents, they're the first voices in your head and what guides you and steers you into, what you want to do, what you want to become. I will say when you are following your path, when you fully realize yourself and your purpose, you will see doors opening for you. You will see that the earth like literally lays out things for you when you're doing what you are supposed to be doing. I do believe that.
For sure. Yeah, everybody has to run their own race, but what can't be negated is the work that gets put in. Everybody has to
Right.
put in
Yeah.
work if they want to be successful in this life. That's the one thing that, our parents instill in us,
Ambition. Hmm.
for sure, and drive.
Right.
So now getting into, you got into medical school, right? Mahari Medical School. And, that's one of the few accomplishments here in America where it's like, if you can get into med school, man, you are Man, you know what I'm saying? And so just talk
Thank you.
about what that was like, that process, and ultimately what made you decide to go to the school you chose.
Yeah, I mean, getting into medical school was tough. Like it's honestly like it's like woo. But it's a marathon, it's not a race.
For sure, for
That's what I
sure.
keep hearing from, everybody, those that are, years above me that are doing it. But I will like say the main things that like helped me through, like I said, and I'm going to keep coming back to this, was, other people and
Yeah,
support. Like, my mom, she would sit there and she would go through the application with me. My sister and my mom, they would both, you know, read through my essays and whatnot. And so I'm going to start back at like undergrad. So it's like you have to do
mm,
pre-med, right? And
mm,
so I didn't really want to. And I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. But my mom was like, we are going to sit down and we're going to make a 4-year plan.
yes.
And I was like, why do we have to do this? Like, I just want to like go to college. And so we sat down and we literally made a 4-year plan. And
Yeah.
my advisor, every time I went to my advisor, because you're supposed to go to your advisor and they're supposed to like set out like what you're gonna take for the next semester. Like I already had like a whole document set out that me and my mom went through and made together the certain classes I take every single year. And like literally all my advising appointments for like literally like less than 10 minutes. She's like, okay, I think you're all set. I
Yeah,
mean, you
see
already
that
have it figured
preparation.
out. And so when I tell you that helped so much,
Mm,
because it's not like I was flustered. It's not like, towards the like my last year, I was like, oh, I didn't take this class or this class. Like I literally like, you have a goal in mind, write things down definitely helps. I do that all the time. And then the application process was, I mean, it was tough as well, but it was just like having to really dive into like everything that you had done, all the volunteer things, and you just have to go back and do all that. But I will say, if anybody's listening and they're trying to go into medicine, with your personal statement, make it personal because
mhm.
you don't want to sound like, too sciencey, like you didn't do anything else. You want to sound like you're just this full complex person that has like this beautiful like life that like does so many different things and make it honest, make it you, but make it
Right.
personal. And you don't want it to be too like generic. You want to really stand out and like dive deep into like, why medicine, like why you want to do that and what led you to that path. Um, and then also when it comes to the interview process for medicine, make sure to do mock interviews and have people literally sit there, listen with you, and then have a mentor. I had a mentor. His name is Dr. Millard Collins. He's the interim chair and associate professor at Meharry, actually, and he's friends with my stepdad and my mom. And he was just like the guiding person. Like I would always check in on him and he would guide me through it. And he told me about the master in health sciences at Meharry. So like when I would apply to like med schools, like I had interviews at different places and then like, I was getting like waitlisted and stuff. And I was just like, dang, like, they're like, I mean, we like you, but like, we just gonna see like if other
Hey,
people
it's
don't
like
come.
that.
And so I was like, dang, like your
Put you on
feelings
the
will really
shelf.
get hurt. Like there's like you could do everything right, but like somebody else might have done everything right and they might have
Yeah.
knew somebody, or somebody else might have done everything right, but maybe they submitted their application for you, or it's just like it's really like that. And like when you get rejections, keep going, because like your failures, they will guide you onto like to things that you never even thought of before, or they will help you evaluate your strengths and your weaknesses. They will help you you know just see like your path. And so yeah, so like when I went on interviews, like I get waitlisted, I still go there and I go talk to people there and I'm like, oh, connect, like, oh, I'm so excited, and just keep waiting. And then Dr. Collins, he told me about the Masters of Health Sciences, or MHS at Meharry. And it's basically you just go there, you learn these basic sciences that you have to basically will help you on the MCAT, and then you have like a certain score that you have to get. You have to get a certain GPA and everything, and pray. But yeah, if you get like a certain score, we got the expedited interview, and so like I did what I needed to be, what needed to be done, and thank God I got into medical school. And as soon as I got my acceptance letter into Meharry, I literally put the deposit in. I was like shouting hallelujah. I was crying, like ugly crying. I was calling my mom. And I was like, dang, like I forgot I even applied to other places because I literally just like accepted it. Like I paid the deposit so quick. And so yeah, but like I always knew in my heart that I did want to go to Meharry. Because that's the place like where it's an HBCU, and I had never had that experience before. That's a place where, you know, I saw like all these, you know, representations like basically of myself, like as professors in medicine. Like it's just excellence everywhere walking around, and the school's so communal. The school's also United Methodist, which I did not know, but I grew up United Methodist. So I was like, wow, that's a plus. Like
Right.
my teacher literally, she just prayed for me, and I was like, wow. And I just feel like, you know, we were all in it together, and we all had like a larger goal in mind. So like really all of it was like this spiritual experience, but it was also intertwined with what I believe is my purpose in life. And I was like, wow, like this is where I need to be. This is where I know I can succeed. This is where I'm happy. And I'm definitely happy at Meharry, and I've made friends that I know I'm going to have for life. And that's the reason why I chose to go to Meharry.
No, it's absolutely wonderful, that you were able to, first off, stay the course and, continue to drive and to push through. And, and it's not always easy, and it's not easy getting into med school at all, but, you didn't let anything stop you. And I think that's the key. Not only, aside from the preparation, aside from, the application process, it's really a matter of determination and drive, and not letting those rejections, if you do get rejected, stop you from continuing to pursue your goal, right? I think that's something for everyone that, just because you may not work on your first try, but keep on going, keep on pushing, learning, rejection doesn't have to be something that deters you. It's something that should motivate you, right?
Right. Persistence is key with like literally anything that you want in life. Like if I stopped the first time I failed, like I wouldn't be where I am today. And truly, you just have to believe that like with the work that you put in, with the passion that you have, with the faith that you exert, you will get to where you want to be. I truly believe that.
Yeah, most definitely. So going on to the next thing is, again, your ties to your roots, your Nigerian and your Sierra Leone roots. You're unapologetically those
Yes.
two things, and you are very outspoken and very proud to be those things. And I think that's, again, we talked about this before, but it's very important that we stress people really embracing who they are. So just
Of
talk
course.
about how you were able to kind of build this very strong identity for yourself and to your cultures.
Hmm. Well, I do think that goes back to family as well. Like even just starting with my parents, they all named us these very hard, complicated African names. So really it's like they did not want us to forget. Like
Right.
I don't have any other name. You know, you'll meet some people, they'll say, oh, my American name is this, and then this is my African
Mm-hmm.
name. But, like all of my names are African names. And so I do feel like my parents did have a lot to do with that. Like, and I think it's beautiful and like poetic in the sense that like anytime anybody calls my name, it's like you can't forget where you come from. Like, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
And also, yeah, growing up in, you know, a space that doesn't have many other Black kids, young Black girls, and other African kids too, you know, I feel like with me, and I guess everybody copes differently where they're at. With me, it made me strive more towards wanting to know myself, more towards anger of why I'm not being normalized, more towards like, hey, like I exist. Like a Black girl who's a first gen, who sounds like this, who people call Valley Girl, and looks like this. I exist, and there's space for me. And also just seeing, again, I'm the youngest kid, seeing my siblings be unapologetically themselves too. And I guess that just goes back to why representation is so important. Seeing that, and that's what I try to provide for my niece. Like, you know, I have my wig on right now. I'm not ashamed. Like every time my niece, like, you know, comes to the house, I'm like, okay, it's time to, you know, take my little braid out. And like, just showing her like I'm beautiful like this, and this is who I am. I'm not like, I love this too. Like this is a part of me. So yeah, I feel like that's how I just really rationalized it and came to terms with just like, this is who I am. You can't change yourself and you shouldn't want to.
Yeah, no,
So
absolutely. Yeah, for me, being that where I grew up and how I grew up, I mean, of course, my parents instilled the identity into us, but the fact of the matter is where we were, there wasn't a whole lot of kids that were like us or who had the same cultures, right? And so
right.
you kind of go through this phase of you don't understand why your parents or your people, your family don't do things the same way that the people who you're around do it. And so
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of go through this like identity crisis of like, I know I'm this, but I see all my friends do this, right?
Right.
And then as you get older, one thing my mom did, and I didn't get it in the beginning, but then it was like, okay, I got it as I became an adult and got older, was she started having us go to these functions, go to these Nigerian churches, going to these
Mm-hmm.
Nigerian events. And in the beginning, it's like, Mom, come on, it's boring. Like, why? But then it's like, no, okay, this is important. You really have to get it gauged
Right.
and get an understanding of the cultures and why.
And you
And
start to appreciate it too and like
oh, for
want that
sure.
for yourself. Yeah.
Especially whenever now as you become an adult and people start asking, well, why do you guys do this, why do you actually able to explain it to them, you actually have an understanding of who you are and why your culture is what it is and why your parents did the things that they do, right? And I think that's the thing, is being able to build that identity and build that understanding and understanding your history, just like I was able to understand American
Yeah.
history. You understand
That's
Nigerian history and
huge.
your customs, right? And I think that's something that you gain
Mm-hmm.
more understanding of yourself, and therefore you know why you are and who you are and what you
Right.
do.
They made us go to church Easter Sunday in our full traditional. Like we stood out, bro. Like we could not hide it. But I mean, and when you get older, you see why they're doing that. And
Yeah.
really, if you don't value your culture, nobody else is
Mm.
going to. And you get to an age and you start to realize like what's important, what you value, what you want to continue on in the certain traditions that you have in your family, or even new traditions, because we have a different experience from our parents as well. And it's just like, you know, we want to hold on tight to that and make sure that it's not lost. And yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and also I think it's not a matter of being ashamed of it either. I think it's just really a lack of awareness of
Right.
why things are the way they are. It's crazy as I got older, and then Black Panther came out, and everybody
Mhm.
came out starting wearing the dashikis, and that now
Right.
everybody wants to know about African
It's
culture.
cool to be African now.
Right. I'm like, I don't even know. Like, but going on to the next thing, we're on the topic of outspokenness and being able to speak on who we are and different things. 2020 has definitely been a year where people have had to break their silence. And one thing that did
Mhm.
happen earlier this year was George Floyd, right? And one thing I saw and that I was very that I admired about not only you but also Chudy, and was you guys' outspokenness on that issue, and seeing you guys speak up and speak out very, very passionately. So just
Mhm.
talk about your outspokenness on social issues such as the George Floyd situation and all other things.
Yeah. So I do feel like this is another foundational aspect that I had when I was younger in high school. Um, I was a part of a youth advisory council in Nashville's Oasis Center, and it was under Tasha Fletcher, and she would, you know, teach us the foundational things about like social aspects and just like social justice as well, and things that really opened my eyes to like, oh wow, like I was frustrated for so long, but now I see the systems, like now I see systemic like racist, like what it is, like what these names are for these things, and it was validating.
Hmm.
And we even like helped put together a Martin Luther King's Day rally at TSU, which is HBCU here. And then also as well, there is a camp called Camp Anytime, which was the leadership camp. And then like when you got there, you realized it was really like you're learning about like social justice and how to be like a leader in social justice as well. And so it was that like really sparked like, okay, like this is how you actually go, like, we learn about these things, but this is how you actually go about it, and like advocating and learning and teaching and, like being a part of that change. And when I got to college, I carried that with me because those experiences were so important and so special to me. And the first protest I went to in college, I think, was for Eric Gardner. And whew, I went to UT Knoxville. And so, like, you have both sides of the conversation very loudly speaking. And
Mhm.
that was a very powerful protest. And, I like bawled my eyes out. And it was good because you felt like you were part of like elevating voices as well, but then you realize like, whoa, like this is actually taking a toll on me, like this is actually like, wow, like this is like it is what it is, like it's like, wow, it's like blatantly right there, the racism that you see in America and
Mhm.
in so many different places, the injustices that darker people have to endure. And so like recently what you saw was like me and Shooty like going to the protest in Nashville, and it was like a lot of protests, especially like, with COVID going on, like people were out there fighting, social issues while also like risking their lives because we have this pandemic going on. It was very powerful. And it was also something that was nice that I got to share with my brother, an experience that we hadn't had before. And it was just nice to be there, like, in around again community and fellowship and other people supporting other people coming together to elevate our voices, elevate other people's voices, marginalized groups, and shed light on these topics. Um, so yeah, sorry, like even forgot the question I was going
No,
on
I mean
into.
it's really just a matter of you using your voice and you using your platform and your opportunity to bring attention to the topics and to the conversations, and you're there firsthand in person, really kind of talking about it and showing your support and showing your your displaying your side. And I think for me, watching this all, it was kind of just like, I mean, it's draining, like you said, just watching all this happen. And, and I understand the passion, and I think that's one thing that people don't kind of really understand. For those who say, oh, well, why are they protesting? It's like, dude, people are hurt. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh yeah, of course. And I
and
mean, yeah, they're killing us in more than just even one way. Like I see it like as the more like I'm in medical school now, I'm seeing more of like the health disparities that are happening. You see Black women disproportionately dying from deaths during childbirth. You see the betrayal of trust that the medical community had on the Black community and the impacts that it has today. You see, the myths that young doctors and have towards Black people as they're treating them. And you see it and you get frustrated and you get angry. And at times you feel powerless, but that frustration is just sits in you. And it is something that we're working towards, advocacy, and it's something that definitely just needs to be shouted out and raise awareness about it until things really get popping, things get changed,
yeah, for
honestly,
sure.
because we're not going to stop until it does.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that's the thing, is that, that anger, that passion, that emotion has to be turned into action, right? Productive action, whatever that is to, the person. But,
Mhm.
instead of letting it just sit there and fester and not talk about it, no, do something about it. And I think that's something that everybody should really take into account, is that, everybody has a voice and everybody should use their voice, right? And
Right.
not everybody is going to have the same experience, the same background, the same reach, the same outlook. That's one thing I had to understand about myself. I was like, okay, how can I really provide context to this conversation? I'm like, well, me, I grew up basically in the middle of both sides, right? From the standpoint, I grew up around disproportionate Black people, I grew up around white people, I grew up around everything. So in terms of being that medium that is able to explain, no, okay, this is what people are really saying, or this is what they're feeling, right? Because I literally started getting people asking me like, Mike, why are why aren't they doing more? Or why are they so angry? Or why are they this? Why they? I'm like, well, these are people who, they feel like their voices aren't being heard, and so now they're feeling like they need to take action, no matter what the risk is, right? This,
Mhm.
and then it's like, well, black people are saying to me, Mike, you grew up around predominantly white people. What's the thing that they're not getting? I'm like, well, you have to talk to them, right? I mean, they're just seeing what they see. They don't really know, a lot of them, right? So it takes us having
Yeah. And
conversations.
then it's on you to like feel like you have to like you feel exhausted that you have to, be like the spokesperson for your race, and even though you're dealing with it too and the trauma that you feel. And I think what you said before was very important. Like, we are people. And I feel like a lot of this is happening because of the dehumanization of Black people, really.
For sure.
And I think that's like, we are people. Like, I just, and people want to act like they don't get it, but it's like, bro, like, we are people. And that's basically, we're just asking for basic human rights and decency.
That's it. We just want to be treated like humans in the end. So now going on to the next thing is, you've been able to not only use your voice but also create mediums for people to really gain more knowledge and more awareness. So one of your social media channels you have is geared towards your work with Sierra Leone, Mission Sierra Inc., your nonprofit. So just talk
Yeah.
about what got you into studying that, and what is that project that you did or do.
So my mom, she's from Sierra Leone, West Africa, and it's a very like small country. And with our history, like, we were freed slaves, and that's why the capital city is called Freetown. And my ancestors settled in Waterloo,
Mm.
and it's like this major transport hub. It's a huge village, and one of my great grandfathers left his will to one of his descendants, who pursued medicine, or in the medical field. And my mom, she's a doctor of nurse practitioner, and together, her and just like all of us as siblings, we started this nonprofit called Mission Sierra Incorporated. And basically, it's just to build up nonprofit dental and medical clinics in Waterloo, and hopefully to expand that further into different cities in Sierra Leone, and much further, even different cities in West Africa, much further, different all across basically the world, just wherever it needs to be served, or wherever is medically underserved. Because, Sierra Leone, I think there's like 5 dentists in the whole country. And in Waterloo, I think there's like maybe one clinic, but it's not like active right now. And so, yeah, so basically just trying to aid in medical support, so people don't have to, you know, um, go long distances to seek medical health care. And, you see like a rise in maternal deaths as well. And so, yeah, if anybody wants to learn more about that, our Instagram is mission_Sierra. You can see there more information on it, how to donate, how to help, and hopefully, one day, like, we could recruit, more people who are like pursuing medicine and dentistry to go and, help volunteer there as well. So that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, most definitely. It's beautiful to see, people being able to take work and take action for sure. So
Thank you.
now another issue. This is now going to our Nigerian roots. Is you work and your outspokenness on end SARS. So just for the people who may not know what that even is, go into what end SARS is. What is that movement, and what has your work been in that space as well?
I'm still learning it myself, but as far as what I know for NSARS is basically just like, I've heard the term SWAT as well, or just like the police force there that basically is targeting people who may have like flashy clothes or anything, and just basically harassing them. And, like, if somebody has an iPhone or something, like, where'd you get this from? Like, did you steal it? And I went to one of the rallies in Nashville here, which I was really happy to see so many like Nigerian people come together, and other people that came to support as well. Um, Councilwoman Zulfa Suara, which is a Nigerian Muslim councilwoman in Nashville, she was there as well, and she was shedding light, and she was talking about how it's such like a larger issue, basically like the police force in Nigeria is basically not getting like compensated or paid enough as well. But like that could lead to, all these larger issues that you see is happening. Somebody that was there that was telling a story, he was talking about a personal story that he had with SARS, and was saying how they took him and they even put him in a cell and they beat him. And he was just fortunate to know somebody who was in the government that ultimately allowed for him to be released. And one of the guards that was there was like, "You're one person that's fortunate enough to leave here with a full body." And that just gave me chills because I was like, whoa, like they're out here like really like,
Slaughtering these like,
yeah, slaughtering people and like cutting off their limbs. And I felt personally like I don't really know much, but I'm wanting to learn more. And I can't speak on everything because I don't know everything that's going on in Nigeria. I wasn't, raised there, but I do like, that's my home as well. And I do feel connection, and people were asking to raise awareness through social media, which I think is important because the Nigerian government definitely cares about how they're being perceived. And so, yeah, if you see something about NSARS, definitely share it, because ultimately the goal is to save people's lives and to end the corruptness that we're seeing.
yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful. All right. So now going on to a lighter subject, you and getting into your interests, you're into poetry. So
Yes.
so talk about that. That's good because I think that's something that I preach for and I advocate is people really getting into interest and alternative interests, not just their career, not just okay, I'm
Mhm.
all work and no play. No, you need to have that relief and that release and to be able to express your creativity. So talk about what got you into poetry and what do you write about?
Oh, what do I write about? Oh, that's deep. Okay. So, what got me into poetry, which is really weird because it's like I went through my like old journals when I was like a kid. Like I've been writing since I was like really young.
Mm,
I used to like write songs and stuff like in like elementary school. But like whenever people ask, I always feel like I was like born a writer,
mm,
and like pursuing medicine, like becoming a doctor, like that's something that I have to become. But I do feel like I was born a writer, if that makes sense.
mm,
And so like those are both such deep passions that I definitely identify with. And the moment I guess that I realized that like I was a writer was like I said, with what I told you with my teacher, Miss Bose. I didn't realize like I was like good. And I was like, okay. Like after she was like, don't throw this away, like, like this could be famous one day, like to like a sixth grader. They're like, oh wow, like, maybe I'm like, okay. And so I just like kept writing. And eventually my friend um she put me on to this magazine called Babes of Color. And so I submitted one of my poems to it. The issue was on colorism. So this Babes of Color magazine. And then the same friend, she was an editor. Her name's Maya Jane. She was an editor for One Report magazine. And so I submitted some pieces there. One was on beauty, which was about Blackness in spiritual places. My piece was called Bitter Water Made Sweet. And then another one was on perfection. And I think that one was on mental health issues. And then one was on light. That was another issue. And also my friend Sammy, he has a magazine called Sublime World. And I submitted just a poem that I really liked. It was just a random poem that I really liked. I submitted like two poems. It was issue 4, Sublime World. You can find all these on Instagram. But yeah, so I submitted some pieces to there. And so I was like, okay, like I'm actually getting my like work out there and stuff like that. That's cool. Um, but really I do write for my like self and coping. When I wrote for One Report, I really loved it because it was like I felt like it's like spiritually minded media, and so I felt like I was writing for God as well, and all the issues like blackness in spiritual places and stuff like that. Like it was all like spiritually focused, and so I really loved that I could morph anytime I can morph one of my passions with my spirituality. That makes me really happy because ultimately I do want to do things for God. And but yeah, so usually when I write poetry, it's like usually a coping strategy. Like I might just be like sad, or I might just like feel like I need to write something down. Ultimately, I do one day want to write a poetic anthology. Like Khalil Gibran, y'all might not know him, but you should know him. He's a poet, and he has a book called The Prophet, and that's like one of my favorite books. And so that inspired me to want to one day like publish and write an anthology. And I rap here and there, but
Rap.
I play poet more.
I haven't found that work on your Instagram yet, so you're gonna have to.
I know I'm gonna have to put that out there when I, get a little more confident. But
Okay.
trying to find my rap voice.
First off, what's a poetic anthology for those who don't
An
know?
anthology. It's like just like like a series of poems like in a
Mm,
book. Like I mean you might know what's her name? Rupee Milk and Honey or Milk, yeah, like that. Like a
okay.
collection. It's like a collection of poems. What it
Okay. Nice. See,
Yeah.
yeah, I already got it. Already got the long term view, so that's great. Okay. So all this stuff that we've talked about, I know you've been, all this outspokenness, all the things that you do, you
Mm-hmm.
know, for the young ladies who may have been exposed to your work, exposed to what you do, and see all the things, what do you tell them as far as what you try to instill those values, to the young ladies coming up, especially?
Okay, well, I have a few things.
Mm,
Um, I would like to say that you can have everything you want in life. Don't let anybody tell you. Like, I mean, I feel like when I was trying to pursue medicine, a lot of people were like, "Oh, you're not family oriented." Like, if you know me, like I am. Like, I want lots of kids. I want to have family. You're able to do it all. You can still pursue any type of profession and be able to have different areas in your life. Like, you see, I'm still writing. I'm still going to I'm still dedicating my life to things that like I truly care about. And you can use your career um, and apply that to certain passions that you have. Like, I'm really into patient advocacy as well, or just advocacy of marginalized groups. I found opportunities like with Siloam Healthcare. I taught refugee people basic health literacy. That's a way of using what you're pursuing as a career to different areas of your life that you truly are passionate about. And also just knowing that your voice matters. And when your voice is in that room that you've always wanted it to be, that your representation is so important for the next person that's watching you as well. And so I know with a lot of profession, there's like imposter syndrome. When you get there, you feel like, oh, maybe like I shouldn't be here. Am I smart enough? Am I, all of that runs through everybody's head, and it's completely valid, especially being like, a young Black woman or a person of color. You might not feel like you belong or you second guess yourself, but just know that women, we dominate the classroom. Like, there, like my class right now is so many women, and your voice matters, and it's going to be, with you there, it's going to be normalized with you there. And if people try to fight back, just know like what you're saying matters, and what you're saying is so important. Don't settle for less in life. Like I said, you could have everything you want and be happy, and you also deserve everything that you get and everything that you work for, and you belong there.
there you go. Absolutely beautiful. There you go, ladies. Young, black, strong, driven, beautiful.
Yes, ladies.
You know what I mean? So, there's one, depiction and one embodiment of anything. There's nothing you can't do. It's all
Right.
it's all in your mental. You feel me? You
Hmm.
tackle every goal. And all right, we'll wind it down. Couple quick hitters. So first off, I guess one thing is, who are some of the people that you look at and who you kind of inspire, and who inspire you? I mean, outside you talked about your family, you talked about your mentors. Who would you say are your biggest people that you aspire and who you look up to?
Who I look up to? Wow. I really look up to my niece, Adora. I know she like 4, but
Oh no, Dora, absolutely
she
beautiful.
is so cute. Like, let me tell you, like she was like visiting me, and when she left my house, because like she gets scared sometimes and we're always like, oh, God is with you, whatever. She was visiting me and she was like leaving with my sister, and she's like, Auntie, are you gonna come with us? I was like, no, I'm gonna stay at my crib, like, girl, I'm gonna stay home. And she was like, oh, she was like, don't be scared, God is with you. I was like, I know, I was like, thank you, but like I needed that, you know what I mean?
For sure. Dora, yeah.
Just like going back to just like that childlike spirit, and just like being so full of like hope and excitement about life, and just like anything is possible. I
Right.
do think that it's really refreshing to have her around, because it just really does remind you, like, because when you get older, you get like kind of like, dang, like maybe this not gonna work out. Like, you know what I mean? But like having her around, that is refreshing, and it is something that like helps me going, helps with my drive, and helps me feel like, oh, I could do anything.
Yeah.
So she definitely inspires me in that realm, just overall. My mom, she definitely inspires me as well, and just like how hard she works and how supportive she is of me. And just like my family in general, they all really do inspire me. And I really strive to make them proud of me. It really is something that I truly value. And I'm just glad that I have that support there and that love.
There you go. Absolutely. All right. And then last thing we always end every episode on is, what is your final words of wisdom, your final gem, your final nugget that you can instill to any aspiring, advocate, outspoken leader, leader of social issues, potential medical student, anything that you could, leave to the next. What would you say?
Okay. Like I said, representation matters with you in the room. One, it's important for other people that want to be in your position, and two, it's important for us to reflect the population that we serve. Just like in anything that we pursue, like we want to reflect that population that we serve. So it's definitely important for you to be there and that you belong there. If you have a goal in mind, write the goal down, make a plan. I promise you it will come into fruition if you write it down and you stick to it, adjust it if you need. Have people, have a mentor, have study groups, have fellowship, a life group, anything. Have people in your life that are there, seek support, seek help, be a support, and be help to other people. It will definitely make you happier. It'll definitely help you and spring you forward. And just have faith in God, have faith in something bigger than you. Um, just keep up with those daily positive affirmations, and really just encouraging yourself and just working towards something greater, because that ultimately will be something that's going to fulfill you. I know
Most
that.
definitely. All right. Absolutely wonderful. That's a wrap. Episode 33 of Foreign Sight Podcast. I want to
Yeah.
thank my cousin Nene for coming on and instilling us with all this knowledge and all these
Thank
gems.
you, Mikey, for having me.
Most definitely. It was a pleasure. Absolutely great episode. You can catch this on YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, and all platforms streaming podcasts. Thank you.